Hi, everyone. It's your favorite MLB newsbreaker, Bob Nightingale, and you're listening to the Lollygaggers Dynasty Recap. Enjoy the show, and thank God for Jeffrey Springs.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Lollygaggers Dynasty Recap. I am your host, Zang. I will be tackling this one solo today. Just a one-person show for this evening's recap as we dive into week number 5. This was a really fun week. I feel like I say that a lot, I sure do, but a lot of weeks in this league are a lot of fun. So this one did have quite a few close finishes. Let's dive right into some of those. We will start off with our first matchup of the week. It is the Arctic Real Survivors taking on the St. Petersburg Tropopologists. 13 points from Vlad Guerrero and 15 from rushing helped St. Petersburg take the lead on Monday. They scored 81 points on that day. 70 would be scored on Tuesday by the Real Survivors, 28 of them coming from Luis Heel, and minus 14 hurt that total a little bit as Reynaldo Lopez gave up quite a few earnies. On the next day, we would see St. Pete hold the lead that they had established on Monday and carried through Tuesday as they scored 135 points. That big Wednesday for them came on 12 from Carter Jensen, 14 from Dylan Lyle, 24 from Clay Holmes, and 26 from Braxton Ashcraft. Just a big group effort there over for the Tropopologists. Freed's 43 points were no slouch over on the Arctic side, but it was not enough to give them that lead. On Thursday, we would see a couple of batters from the Arctic put up some solid numbers. In Green with 10 points and Bogarts with 16. That contributed to the 58 points total scored by Min and his Real Survivors. Seiya Suzuki put up 14, and Cade Cavalli in his first start with the Tropopologists put up 19. That continued to hold that lead. Things did last through Friday and Saturday as well, with 87 and 28 points being put up by the Tropopologists. And a bow was put on things for the wire-to-wire win as Ildemaro Vargas put up 21 points, sealing the Tropopologists' victory. It's a tough final day as well for the Real Survivors. I did feature them in my, who to keep an eye on little series that I send out every Sunday morning, but Nola minus 1 points, Heel minus 8. Of course, that first one there doesn't really hurt in the negatives, but neither one of them gave them any points, and it would be enough for St. Petersburg to take the matchup by 97 points, 560 to 463. Really interesting matchup. I think we are starting to kind of see the Tropopologists that we know and love from last year coming into form. We said it a bunch of times, Ace and I. We said it's early. It's early. There are some teams slumping a little bit, but guys, it's early. And we're seeing it happen. That Skeens guy is putting up some pretty good numbers. 41 points on Friday. I think he got into the 7th inning for a perfect game. He is definitely rounding into form. Not so much for Tarek Skubal just yet. He has had a couple more tough starts. So that might be something just to keep an eye on. Of course, not worried long-term at all because he's Tarek Skubal. But just something to keep an eye on. But overall, this is just the Tropopologist formula. Great starts from across the staff. You're getting good Clay Holmes starts, good Braxton Ashcraft starts, good Cade Cavalli starts, and then, of course, those really big guys. And I think a really underrated offense over there. Vlad is incredible. Carter Jensen and Dalton Rushing have been incredible from the catching position. And the Junior Caminero, who put up 18 points also on that Friday, is just a star of stars. Over on the Arctic Real Survivor side, this is their first loss in 2 weeks, I want to say. Maybe even 3 weeks. I can't remember if they lost that first week or the other one. But you continue to see their formula. It is a big group effort, as we've talked about, of course, with these expansion teams. Muncie with 21 points on Monday. Didn't get a chance to mention that during the recap. Really strong performance for him. And overall, the Real Survivors, I think, are showing out to be a strong team kind of in the middle of that heart of the playoff chase. I think last year we saw there were typically 2, sometimes 3 teams where we were like, all right, they are a lock for the playoffs. There were those 3, maybe 4 at the bottom where it was like, all right, they are a lock for not making the playoffs. And there was kind of that big bunch in the middle. And early on, at least, it is looking to me like the Real Survivors have a strong chance to kind of be in that middle group. And we know a lot of that is going to come down to total points scored, and it's going to come down to some of these close matchups. So good week for them overall, and kind of just came up against a big bear in the St. Petersburg Tropopologists. For best batters and pitchers, the Tropopologists did have Ildemaro Vargas with 45 points. That was their best batter. And Paul Skeens with 41, of course, as I mentioned earlier, as the best pitcher. Number 4 best batter for the league, Max Muncy, put up 47 points total. He was the Real Survivors' best batter. And Max Fried, another Max with 43 points, was the best pitcher. Those 43 came in just one performance against some team who I don't really think we need to talk about which team that was. Okay, moving on to the Bronx Bandoleros taking on the Joinville Friendly Capybaras. This was a big matchup. I kind of planted my flag. I said, look, if we see another Bandoleros loss, I'm going to start to get worried. 0-5 is a deep hole. Or 0-4, frankly, is not all that great itself, but it feels manageable. 0-5 is serious. And so I said, look, JMC, get that team together, man. Get your horses in a row. And on the other side, aside from that one win, it has been a tough start as well in Joinville. So 2 teams kind of looking to get off the schneid and, potentially put up another win or their first win of the season. Things started well for Joinville. They took the lead 42-25 on Monday. 68-57 helped them hold that lead on Tuesday. Chase Burns scored 23 of those 57 points for the Bronx. Then for Joinville and the Bronx, respectively, on Wednesday, we saw 69 points and 71 points. For Joinville, they had a couple of Angels tack up points for them. Trout with 11 and Shanuel with 17. A couple of hometown guys getting it done for Hideki. But on Thursday, we would see the Bandoleros steal that lead with another nice 69 points. Cam Shitbag accounting for 36 of them. And over on the other side, we saw Gavin Sheets and Edward Cabrera tack up 13 points and 23 respectively. The Bronx would hold their lead through Friday with a 94 point. And again on Saturday as they put up over 100 with 101. On that Saturday, we saw 34 from Reagans, who looks like he's really shaping back into form. An unfortunate minus 10 from Jordan Romano, although I think that is the last minus we'll see him putting up for the Bandoleros there. The Bandoleros were able to close things out on Sunday with Jose Fernandez's 10 points, 16 from Bobby Witt, 19 from Manny Machado. Didn't hurt over on Joinville's side. They won the day, but unfortunately for the Friendly Capybaras, not the matchup. We finally see the Bronx Bandoleros take home their first win of the season. They are now sitting at 1-4, along with the Friendly Capybaras, who are also at 1-4. The final score of the matchup was 482-402. So 80 points separating the two of them. Look, it's great to see the Bandoleros get their first win, obviously. I have been staunch in believing that this is not a bottom-of-the-barrel team, and I think we saw it this week. Although he wasn't mentioned on here at all, Aaron Judge is, like I said last week, definitely starting to sort of find his Judge form, and we know how important that is to the Bandoleros. And I think the pitching staff is where we're starting to see maybe the most improvement in that team. I promise I won't call him Cam Shitbag too much longer. But Schlittler, obviously, with 36 points is fantastic. Burns and his 23 was great. And then Cole Reagans, looking like Cole Reagans, is huge. So I think everything's kind of just starting to find its level a little bit. And now, not to jump too far ahead, but despite being in last place all those weeks, the Bandoleros are actually not in last place, which I do think speaks a little bit to that total points scored record, which obviously is the first tiebreaker. And, we were talking about them underperforming a little bit just in terms of matchups. So we're starting to see them get right back on track. And it's been a tough few weeks for Joinville. A lot of starting pitching trouble, sort of the opposite of what we're seeing on the other side. After starting really great, Edward Cabrera's had a couple tough ones, and the rest of the guys are just not showing out in the way you need them to. This can be seen pretty obviously. Best pitcher for the Friendly Capybaras was Tyler Rogers with 33 points. Now, I know we love Tyler Rogers. Send the meme in chat, Hideki, but relief pitcher should almost never be your best pitcher, unless, of course, it's Mason Miller or something, because he's broken. Some good news for the Joinville Friendly Capybaras. Bobby Witt with 42 points. We know how important that's going to be for Joinville to have him kind of back on track, and it certainly looks like he's looking fully like himself again. Over on the other side, old friend Josh Jung put up 41 points for the Bandoleros, sort of making his return after being drafted by them last year, dropped through all of it, and I believe, was picked up at the beginning of the week on waivers and made it back onto the team and ended up as the best batter. So that's a fun story. And then Cam Schlittler, the shitbag himself, was the best pitcher with 36 points. Moving on to matchup number 3, we have the North Pole Natty Bows taking on the Cuyahoga Black Panthers. A 2-point lead of 64-62 gave Cuyahoga the lead early on Monday, and that was about it. I hate to be too harsh on this one. This was an absolute blowout. I'm just going to go through North Pole scores: 88, 73, 90, 92, 97 to cap things off 143. The highest scoring day that Cuyahoga had was Monday. The second highest was Tuesday with 58. It was just not Cuyahoga's week, and it was absolutely North Pole's week. I'll go over a few of the batters and pitchers here. Dolander had 23 on Tuesday. That contributed to that 88. Shohei with 29 on Wednesday. He's looking unbelievable as a pitcher. Tyler Glasnow with 46 on Thursday, along with 14 from Ryan Jeffers. Adley Rushman with 24 on Friday against some team. I don't know who you did that against. It's a total mystery. McGonigal with 13 on Saturday, and then that Sunday, 143 points, 15 of them from Otani as a hitter, 16 from Christian Walker, another 35 from Chase Dolander, and 36 from Chris Sale. So a couple ways to look at this. First of all, Serial, you had a bad week, man. It happens. Fortunately for you, you had a bad week when you were going up against what I am very confident in saying is the highest scorer all year in the league. 648 points North Pole scored. 648. Let me say that again. 648 points. What the fuck? That is just a bananas scoreline. 312 points did separate the two of them. Cuyahoga scored 336. So good for you, Serial. It would have been really bad if the difference had been more than what you scored, if he had more than doubled up. He didn't quite double you up, but he almost did. Oh my goodness, North Pole had such a good week. There's not much to say. Obviously, everything is working. You don't need me to tell you that the batters were good because you know the batters were good. You don't need me to tell you the pitchers were good because you know the pitchers were good. Taking Chase Dolander early in that roster expansion draft is continuing to pay dividends for the Natty Bows. And that kind of extra roster slot they get from Shohei, being able to plug him in as a pitcher daily, because he does, of course, acquire batter points as a pitcher. I think that is where some of these pretty gaudy numbers can come from. And of course, we know how valuable that guy can be and what an advantage he can provide. Unbelievable stuff. I wish I had more superlatives to give. Just crazy, crazy, crazy performances from pretty much all of Natty Bo's guys. 48 points from Christian Walker made him the number 3 best batter. Number 1 potent pitcher was Chase Dolander with 58. I ranked it number 1 for all pitchers in the league this week. Over on the other side, we did have 34 points from Carlos Correa and 34 as well from Seth Lugo as Cuyahoga's best batters and pitchers. But yeah, overall, unbelievable week for the Natty Bows. Tough one for Cuyahoga, but, dust yourself off. 2-3 now, and looking to, kind of bounce back next week, hopefully against a little bit easier of an opponent. Sliding down to number 4, we have the Seoul Sovereigns taking on the Fenton Melonheads. Seoul will just not die. It seems like it will take a miracle to defeat them on Sunday. I want to say it's 3 straight weeks now in 10 has had like a super, super close finish on Sunday, pardon me. Things didn't look good for them early on. I'm just going to say that. Fenton scored 110 on Monday. Isaac Paredes with 17. Rhett Lauder, with 25 and just 30 points from Seoul. But it would be a double barrel 100 day the next day. 107 for the Sovereigns, 105 for the Melonheads. The Sovereigns, that came from 11 from Nico Horner, 13 from Jacob Marcy, and then 29 points each from Shota Imanaga and Nolan McLean. Over on the Melonhead side, it was a little bit more spread out, but one really strong performance in Randy Vasquez, who did put up 36 points there. On Wednesday, Fenton held the lead they had established since Monday, scoring 80 points, 10 of them coming from Matt Olson and Drake Baldwin. a couple of Braves, and 12 coming from Yordan Alvarez. Nick Martinez with 37 points, another one of those roster expansion draft guys, helped contribute to the 72 total scored by the Sovereigns on that day. On Thursday, we saw 39 to 58 for Fenton and the Sovereigns, 27 of them coming from DeGrom for the Melonheads, and 18 from Brandon March over on the Sovereign side. On Friday, Seoul won the day big time, scoring 73 points to just 26 over on the other side. Okamoto scored, 11 points on Friday, and Daniel Schneeman also had 11 points on Friday over on the Melonhead side. Now, Saturday, we saw something kind of new. For the first time since we figured out the roster legality being sort of managed by Fantrax, we did have an illegal roster, and no points were put up by the Melonheads. They put somewhere in the mid-60s, those points were scored, but none of them were recorded. A player was accidentally left on IL for too long, and so the day became invalid. Fenton scored 0 points, and on the back of that, we saw Seoul score 70 points and take the lead. It looked like it was all coming up in 10 once again. He was going to do it one more time, steal the lead at the last second, and win narrowly. And then Sunday happened. 191 points for the Fenton Melonheads, the single highest scoring day we have seen all season. Not a bad 80 over on the other side, but you know that would not be enough as the Melonheads won by 61 points, 553 to 492. Let me talk you through the Melonheads day and how they got there. Matt Olson and Kyle Schwarber, again, each had 10 points. Isaac Paredes with 14, and then a trio of starting pitchers, Michael King with 26, Canaliere with 27, and Spencer Arrighetti with 35. There were 3 pitchers going over on Seoul's side as well. Max Meyer with his 20 was great, but unfortunately, a bit of a shaky start from Nolan McLean made that comeback just not quite possible for Inten to hold it through that Sunday. So Fenton does take the win, and Inten's streak of last second stealings of the win is unfortunately over for now. But as you know, in fantasy, it's a long season and we can still keep an eye out. Pretty crazy day on Fenton's side. Really, really impressive stuff, obviously, on that last day. The bats are doing well. Nice to see Isaac Paredes heating up for them. He was definitely pretty cold to start the year, but last year was a very valuable batter for them, and I think we're continuing to see that. Yordan has been incredible. I know Peach discussed trading him a little bit in the offseason for something of a roster crunch when it came to him and Schwarber. Didn't end up doing it because some position eligibility adjusted, and for Peach's saying, thank goodness, because wow, has Yordan been good all year. And then the pitchers just doing what they need to do. Early with a great start. Arrighetti was fantastic this week. 48 points made him Fenton's best pitcher. And another guy I mentioned twice on that list, Matt Olson with 41 points, was the best batter. Very impressive stuff from the Melonheads. We can see why they are one of the top contenders in the league this year. We're on the Sovereign side. Other than the minus 11 from Tyler Holton, it wasn't a terribly bad week from a pitching standpoint. Batters are showing out nicely too. I think Okamoto with that 23 points between Friday and Saturday. It's nice to see him a bit of a slow start to the season, similar to what I mentioned earlier for Paredes, but with that, really contact-oriented approach, I think it's hard to not see him kind of leveling out and water finding its level a bit with Okamoto. And good week for McLean, not great week. It was a 2-start week. On Tuesday, he did have that 29, but he ended the week with just 45 in total. So a bit of a slow one on the back there. But hey, look, strong week for Seoul. Obviously, 492 is not a bad scoreline at all, just shy of 500. Just came up against somebody who ended with a bit over 500. So we do see the Melonheads take that matchup. Sorry, need to get a sip of tea. And now we are back seeing the Valley Gift Lords take on the Sault Ste. Marie Lux. It would be another 2-point lead for the Gift Lords, 34-32, as they would open up the week. But things really got started on Tuesday, as the Gift Lords scored 124 points to just 52 over on Sault Ste. Marie's side. Munetaka Murakami with 13 and James Wood contributed to that 100-plus day for the Gift Lords, while over on the other side, we saw Dustin May and Foster Griffin each put up 20 points, and then an unfortunate minus 11 from Merrill Kelly. 64 points for the Gift Lords on Wednesday, as we saw them hold that lead, and the same would be true through Thursday, on 10 points from Evan Carter as they scored 31 points. Didn't mean to skip over too quickly. On Wednesday, Casey Mize did throw a solid 30 points for the Locks, and on Thursday, Brett Beatty put up a nice 12 points that closed that gap just a little bit. On Friday, we saw another high-scoring day with 86 for the Gift Lords, as Nick Kurtz scored 11 and Emmett Sheehan put up 21. Connor Norby and Brooks Lee each tallied an 11 as well over on Sault Ste. Marie's side. But Valley Gift Lords would hold it through the end of the weekend, finishing things off with a bang, 129 points on that final day. Don't want to forget about 24 points from Noah Schultz on Saturday for the Locks. That young White Sox lefty is looking great still, but it would not be enough. Valley would go wire to wire on this one, starting to lead on Monday and finishing it on Sunday, 506 to 423. 83 points separated the two teams by the end of the week. Overall, solid performances from both teams. Over 400. You love to see that. And some best bats and two potent pitcher contributors, one from each team, as we'll get into that in just a second. The bats are continuing to do it from the Gift Lords, and I think we're seeing actually some impressive stuff out of their young pitchers. Some guys that, Al Martinet kind of bet on to be good, and they are paying off. Sean Burke being one of them, Kyle Harrison being the other. They had 31 and 41 points respectively on Sunday. And then Michael McGreevy with 26 points. I don't think someone that Al Martinet is expecting to be, anybody particularly like a big contributor, but a solid back end piece there, and 26 points you'll never say no to. Over on the other side, the name that really catches my eye is Foster Griffin. He put up 55 points on the week total. He was the number 3 potent pitcher, young guy in the Nationals, and as we say with every National, like, he has all the runway in the world to make it work. Obviously, those wins are going to be a bit hard to come by, but if he pitches like he did this week, that's not going to matter too much as long as he's keeping those ERAs, the earned runs, and hits down low. He, should continue to show out. Yeah, 2 performances, 34 on Sunday and 20 on Tuesday. A couple of nice ones for the young pitcher out in Washington. Jung-Hoo Lee was the best batter for the Sault Ste. Marie Locks, 33 points for him, and Nick Kurtz with 38 was the best batter for the Valley Gift Lords. Moving on to our penultimate matchup, we have the Washington State Winners taking on the Southwest Rabid Coyotes. Of course, coming into this week 4-0, we would see the Washington State Winners try and reach the yet untouched 5-0. Of course, last year we did have a team go 3-0. 4-0 is new territory this year, but the Winners were hoping to live up to their name and push it a little further. They got started well, 66 points on Monday to 63 over on Southwest Kansas's side. For the Coyotes, 27 points came from Bryce Elder. And over on Washington State's side, it was a bit of a mixed group. Sal Stewart had 15 and Colin Rea had 29. -6, unfortunately, from Slade Sessione, but they would take that lead on Monday. However, on Tuesday, 82 points from the Southwest Kansas Rabid Coyotes would give them the lead. 29 from Kumar Rocker. Did get 11 from Chase DeLauder over on the other side. Despite scoring just 31 points on Wednesday, the Coyotes would hold their lead over the Winners. Winners had a nice performance from their hometown catcher, Cal Raleigh, 13 points on Wednesday, but a -15 from Anthony Kay kind of erased that bonus from the catcher there. On Thursday, we saw quite a spread of impressive performances across the two. Washington State scored 53 with Southwest Kansas scoring 97. Over on the winner's side, Bichette and TJ Rumfield each had 11 points with J.R. Ritchie tallying up 29. For Southwest Kansas, Michael Bush had 11, Ozzie Albies had 16, and Davis Martin put up a nice pitching performance, scoring 27 points. On Friday, it would be a heads or tails performance for Washington State's pitchers. George Kirby had 22 points. Brian Bayo had minus 22 points. So that kind of evened things out there and contributed to a little bit of a lower scoring day. 50 overall for the winners. 81 on Southwest Kansas's side. Gunner with another 13. Jazz with 17 on that day. And Dansby Swanson with 18 as they walked their way up the ladder there. A slow day for the Mariners pitcher Brian Wu on Saturday would contribute to just 54 total from the winners. You don't mind 13 from J-Rod, 15 from Cole Young, or 20 from Sal Stewart. Oh my God, that guy's a sicko. But over on the other side, a pair of excellent starts from Bryce Elder and Shane McClanahan, scoring 21 and 26 points, would be the deciding factor. And as you would expect, it did finish out with Southwest Kansas, who took the lead on Tuesday. It finished out with them holding it all the way through the end of the week. They scored 66 on the final day, 10 of them coming from Gunnar Henderson. And the Southwest Kansas Rabbit Coyotes become the first team to defeat one of the undefeated 4-0 Giants as the Washington State winners. And Mike will now move to 4-1 with Southwest Kansas sliding up to 2-3. We'll start on the Coyotes side here. Bryce Elder, who was picked up from waivers, has been fantastic for them, shown up on a lot of lists, and some nice, I think, improvement from their infield group as well. Obviously, I mentioned Michael Bush, who had a slow start to the year. He's heating up. Gunnar Henderson is heating way back up. I joked around a couple episodes ago. I think all 13 of us tried to trade for him at some point because we all knew he'd heat back up. Well, shocker, he is. Jazz is definitely getting there as the weather's warming up, and Dansby had a couple really nice days. So you're seeing those sort of solid, steady Eddie bats come back together. And pitching performances from young guys like Davis Martin and Kumar Rocker are never going to hurt. Nice to see McClanahan in the 20s as well. Tough road back for him, but he is there. So it's nice to see him putting up some strong performances. Over on Washington State's side, it was sort of a trouble in pitching paradise. Obviously, we know how many good pitchers they have, and I think particularly reliable guys. That is something I've noticed the most about Washington State's pitching staff is, look, they don't have any of the really, really high-end type starting pitchers, but just a lot of really steady guys who are going to put up those 25 to 30 point performances on the weekly. And a lot of those guys just kind of fell through. And that's just unfortunate luck, I think, for Mike and the winners, that it kind of all happened on 1 week. This does not worry me about their standing at all. And, even on top of that, the really high-end guys I do have, Brian Wu had a tough week. Not obviously a great start in his return for Zach Wheeler, although he is back now. So certainly have to expect he will be, getting better as he gets his sea legs under him a little bit more. Shout out, though, to Okie Sooner in the Southwest Kansas Rabid Coyotes, 151-point win over Mike to take down the first 4-0 team. I would say season doesn't really start until everyone's got their first loss and everyone's got their first win. We'll find out soon. Does everyone have their first loss? Yes, they do. They do. But we'll talk about that a little bit now. It is time to recap the Pod Bowl. The Portland Pioneers versus the Arizona Asphalt. Of course, Ace and I going up against one another. I did, as I mentioned in the chat, get a chance to kind of go back into the records and figure out Ace did actually win both of them last year. So the Portland Pioneers would be looking to win their first Pod Bowl in franchise history this week as the, Asphalt looked to go undefeated in the Pod Bowl. Things started off well for Portland, 97 points on that first day off a couple of starting pitchers, Dylan Cease with 24 and Justin Wrobleski with 28. Asphalt punched back big time on Tuesday, 103 points. Let's talk about the batters first. Luis Garcia with 13, Ellie De La Cruz with 22. On the pitching side, a couple of low 20s in Yamamoto with 22 and Landon Roop with 23. They actually went up against each other in that game. Kind of fun little note there. And a good note on the other side for the Pioneers. 11 points from both Turang and Francisco Lindor. On Wednesday, the lead that Portland had held through Monday and Tuesday was yanked away thanks to 77 points from the Arizona Asphalt. Miguel Vargas recorded 12 of those. Over on the other side, we saw Spencer Torkelson put up 10. Don't worry, you'll hear that name again soon. But on Friday, the lead that had been taken was wrestled back by Portland, thanks in big part to the Piglet, Peyton Tolley, who put up 32 points in his return to the big leagues. On Friday, we would see 61 points from Arizona and 96 from Portland. Arizona's Liam Hicks put up 10 points, and over in Portland, we saw 28 from Drew Rasmussen and 14 from Spencer Torkelson. On Saturday, Ellie De La Cruz recorded 13 with Mizorowski, recording 22. That contributed to the 87 total for Arizona. Just 47 over on Portland's side, but they did hold the lead. Bit of a mixed bag with the starters here. 33 from Crochet. Great to see him get back into form. Minus 13 for Flaherty. Not so great from him. It was an awfully close matchup. Just 18 points separated the two of them. Portland did not have any pitching points coming on Sunday, having maxed out their starts on Saturday. No starting pitching points, no relief pitcher points. One start for Arizona was coming from Landon Roop. All Portland needed to win was not let Landon Roop have a big day. 33 points. 33 points from Landon Roop. A very impressive starting pitching performance there, and it looked like it might be enough to get Arizona over the hump, but unfortunately, their bats just did not show up. Lots of negatives. A tough day at the office for Randy Rosarena. And over on the other side, Spencer Torkelson, who received a number of little smooches on the forehead this week, just did great work. Scored 14 points and was sort of the winner for the Portland Pioneers. As we did take the matchup 423 to 412, just 11 points separating the two of us. A very close finish, a photo finish on the third annual Podbowl as we see the Pioneers take their first win in that semi-annual tradition. Biannual tradition? Can't remember which one is twice a year and which one is once every other year. You can tell me. But here we have it. Yeah, and so, this was just a fun matchup. I think both of our bats, frankly, kind of sputtered, aside from Torkelson on my side. Ellie De La Cruz, I should say, Ellie was quite good as well. Number 5 on the best bats list with 45 total points for him. Torkelson, however, was number 1 on the best bats list with 56 points. On Arizona's side, we had the number 2 potent pitcher in Landon Roop with 56 points. And on Portland's side, 33 points from Garrett Crochet was the best pitcher. We definitely need a name for having a potent pitcher and a best batter and not winning the matchup. I don't know what we're going to call it, but there's got to be a name for that. Hey, speaking of tropes, we made it a full week without basseting, folks. I mean, come on. That's pretty great. We made it a full week. There was nobody on Arizona's roster that today, put up that minus 12 or whatever. You know what? Let me double check. I'm just going in now. I got to make sure. It's too common. It's happened too many times. Let's just make sure that there was nobody today. I'm sure I would have written it down. Yeah, there was not anybody today that put up that line. So finally, the curse of the Bassett has ended. 4 straight weeks with a Bassett. I think 4 is enough, and the streak will end at week 5. Perhaps we'll have some sort of a new trope start next week. Let's slide to the standing segment as we have seen quite a mix-up. Obviously, with those 2 undefeated teams now joining a pool of players. Head-to-head, not head-to-head record. Oh, I almost said last year's rule. Total points scored comes into play. Fenton Melonheads lead the pack at 4-1 with the most points scored. Arizona Asphalt are in second place with the Washington State Winners in third. Sitting at 3-2, North Pole Natty Bows hold up our next group starting in 4th place. Arctic Real Survivors are in 5th place. Portland Pioneers in 6th, and the Seoul Sovereigns are in 7th. Starting our group just below 500 are the St. Petersburg Tropopologists at 2-3. They're the number 8th ranked team with the Valley Gift Lords at number 9. Number 10, we have the Cuyahoga Black Panthers, and number 11, the Southwest Kansas Rabid Coyotes. Number 12 is a group of 3 teams, all with the record of 1-4. We have the Joinville Friendly Capybaras starting things off, the Bronx Bandoleros at 13th, finally moving out of that bottom spot, and the Sault Ste. Marie Locks taking their position down in the basement. Fun note for the week, we had no pitcher bench blunders. That was kind of funny. Kept looking through it, and yeah, there was nobody on there that really should have made it. Obviously, pitcher scored points on the bench, but I kind of go with if it was more than 10 points for a batter or more than, 15, 20 points for a pitcher, I'll put them on there. But really great work, week for start, so nobody had it there. We did have a few bats, though, unfortunately. Sam Antonacci on Tuesday did have 15 points for the Tropopologists. That was on an inside the park home run, which is just kind of fun. An unfortunate, this one hurts. Another 15 for the Tropopologists on Friday. Connor Griffin hit his first big league home run. Of course, with the Trop scoring that really impressive point total. It doesn't really matter in the end, but would have been fun to have him in the lineup for that first home run. And then 20 points on a batter on Friday from Matt McLean was on Sault Ste. Marie's bench for that time. Let's slide down to the claims corner as we will take a look at who was claimed on waivers. Jose Caballero on $7 went to the Bronx Bandoleros. Brian Rocchio for $10 went to the Rabid Coyotes. Martin Perez on $23 went to the St. Petersburg Tropopologists, along with Joe Kunal on $29. The Gift Lords bid on Carson Kelly, $5, and got him, along with Antonio Senzatella for $15, who went to Sault Ste. Marie. Sault Ste. Marie also grabbed and then later dropped Elliot Ramos for $10. On Thursday, Jake Cronenworth led off the group with $7 going to the Portland Pioneers. Ahmed Rosario for $10 went to Joinville. Everson Piera on $14 went to Joinville as well. The Asphalt signed Felix Reyes for $20. Tomoyuki Sugano on $35 went to the Washington State Winners. The Real Survivors signed a pair of players in Jesse Schultens for $39 and Lucas Giolito for $64. Big bid there for the new Padres right-hander. Walbert Arena went for $31 to the Bandoleros, and then the Valley Gift Lords signed a trio of players, each for $10, JT Jin, Kai Wei Teng, and Hogan Harris. Only 2 trades this week, a bit of a quiet week on the trade front. 2 trades in which we saw a relief pitcher go from the Real Survivors over to another team. Our first one was the Real Survivors trading Louis Varland to the Melonheads for Joinville's 2027 second-round pick. The Real Survivors netted another round pick as they sent Clayton Beater over to Washington State. But in a kind of a funny note, it is actually the Real Survivors 2028 second round pick that they got back. So that is kind of funny. It was originally traded for David Davallo earlier in the offseason. Again, shout out to KJ Lee for putting up the trade spreadsheet, because I was like, oh man, it'd be so cool if I could find out who that pick was traded for. There's no trade. Oh my gosh, I got it. And it just went on the spreadsheet, found it right away. Thanks again for putting that together. It is definitely helpful for us here on the podcast. Last thing we will touch on before we head out for the night, I should say, is next week's notes, as we will look at our 5th week already. Things are flying by, man. I can't believe it. Our 6th week, pardon me. Our 6th week. Yeah, they're flying by. It's hard to believe we're already in week 6. After week 7, around midweek, I will do a first trimester check-in. We'll take a look at, team records, talk sort of in the macro sense with them. Talk over, who are the best batters so far, the best pitchers so far, all that good stuff. And just kind of have an early check-in on the season, see how things are going a third of the way through. But that'll be a couple weeks from now. Let's talk about next week. Week 6, we have Joinville at 1-4, facing off against the North Pole Natty Bows at 3-2. Southwest Kansas will be taking on the Arizona Asphalt. Kansas is at 1-4 with the Asphalt, with having the inverse record of 4-1. St. Petersburg and Seoul also have an inverse record face-off. St. Petersburg at 2-3 and Seoul at 3-2. Portland also takes on an inverse opponent. 3-2 for Portland, 2-3 for the Valley Gift Lords. The real survivors at 3-2 will be taking on the Washington State winners at 4-1. Big matchup there from a couple of playoff teams, or teams in the playoffs right now, I should say. Cuyahoga at 2-3 will be taking on the Sault Ste. Marie Locks at 1-4. And finally, our headlining matchup for the week. It is an inverse matchup. I've got Fenton Melonheads at 4-1 taking on the Bandoleros at 1-4. I know what you're saying, Zang. What are you doing? A 1-4 team in the headliner matchup? I think we are seeing the Bandoleros find their way. They got bad luck a couple times. They see the first win. Once you see that first one go in, things just kind of start to pick up. So I think that's going to be a really fun matchup. Obviously, we've seen how great Fenton has been. And I think we're going to see some good work out of the Bronx this week. So that is our recap for this past week. Thanks for sticking with me and my little hiccups as I roll solo, but it was great to recap the week, talk it over with all of you, and excited to see you back here again in about 7 days. Have a good one, everyone.
Do you know what that makes you, Larry?
Lollygag.
Lollygag.